welcome to the race control building at Goodwood. Now you might have clicked on this video expecting me or Sean or Laura to be somewhere driving a Ferrari and might be wondering why I'm sat in admittedly nice surroundings but not at the seat of a V12 convertible supercar. Well, first I'll quickly explain. You see, in October last year we were given the opportunity to drive a couple of Ferraris, 4 in fact, the 812 GTS, a couple of F8 Tributo and Spider and a Roma. The thing was, we only had a morning with the cars, and trying to film 4 cars in a morning means you probably only got about an hour or so with each. It was speed week and the cars needed to be back for other people. We didn't want to try and rush something like that and produce something a bit ropey, so we thought we'd drive the cars as much as possible and bring you some rather lovely footage and then talk about them afterwards, which is what we're going to do today. So I was probably the luckiest of us because I got to drive the 812 GTS. In case you hadn't guessed, the 812 GTS is a convertible version of the 812 Superfast. It's got the same 6.5 litre V12, producing around 800 horsepower and 590 pounds-foot of torque. All that torque goes just to the rear wheels, the engine's at the front, and it's got a dual clutch gearbox. There's a little bit more to it though. It's not just any supercar. For me, it was my first Ferrari. There's something pretty special about driving your first Ferrari. And there's something even more special about driving your first Ferrari when it has a V12. There's just something so emotive about the idea of a V12 Ferrari, especially one where the engine's at the front, not sat somewhere in the rear. It's the way a Ferrari should be. For me, it's the way a supercar or a car really should be. It's the way that Enzo Ferrari built his cars and wanted to continue to build his cars. Now the 812, normal, Superfast, looks spectacular. And in the flesh, it looks even more spectacular. It's even more spectacular when you're the one walking up to it to drive it. Then you sit inside what is an acceptable cabin. Ferrari don't really produce particularly exciting interiors, but they work. It's got a rev counter on the steering wheel, which is fun. It's got a little screen for the passenger so they can be scared by just how fast you're going. When you sit inside it, you feel a sense of occasion. There's something very special about the fact that you're about to drive a Ferrari. Your heart rate's going. You feel excited. You know this should be a special experience. And then you push that big red starter button on the steering wheel, and it happens. That V12 bursts into life. There's a mechanical noise, as there should be from a big engine like that, and then away we go. And then it's a convertible. So not only can you listen to that V12 in the normal way, you can put the roof down and hear it in all its glory. It's quite nerve-wracking to sit in something like that on an October's morning when it is in fact 1 degree outside and the sun isn't really up yet, because all that power going just to the rear wheels in something that's worth not an insignificant amount of money can set your heart fluttering. And when the tyres are cold in the 812 GTS, it is a little bit squirrely, but there's no other way about it. Not that many cars these days act massively differently between cold tyres to warm tyres, but there is a definite difference in the 812. You feel the back end start to scrub the moment that you put your foot down for the first time. But somehow, rather than being scared or nervy, which can happen in some cars, like if you floor it in a Mustang and it pitches itself sideways, you just don't. There's something about the way that the 812 GTS feels that makes it feel secure. And then as you drive it, the more you're driving it as the sun comes up and it's a beautiful morning, those tyres start to get warm. And that feeling of squirreliness just disappears. The feeling of driving the 812 GTS is fascinating because it is this big, scary monster when you first sit down to drive it. But after a little while, rather than you feeling like you need to tame a big beast, it's actually working with you. It is a very, very easy car to drive. And I'm not talking easy in terms of something like an Audi R8, which, to be honest, I find a bit dull to drive. It feels like it's totally on rails and that you're doing nothing. No, it feels like you and the car work together in tandem and that it just wants to help you everywhere. You approach corners and pitch the nose in, hoping to find some grip, and actually find a lot more than you could have really hoped for. That big engine is tucked much further back to give you a better weight distribution, but still provides a nice amount of weight over the front wheels, so you don't have to worry about turning in sharply. And then you can power through the mid-corner. And you feel at first like that's just going to result in something pretty scary on public roads at this time in the morning, but no. The back end is enjoyable. It's not scary, it's controllable. It doesn't want to pitch you into a spin. It's not a 106 GTI from the mid-1990s. It will work very well with you. And then you learn a little secret, which is when it's cold, you don't really want to have the roof down all the time. But it's got a little window just behind you that you can put down so that the sound of that engine comes in. And I can talk about how the car handles all day. But to be totally honest, it's all about that engine, which is magnificent. It pulls incredibly well. It obviously has 800 horsepower, but while it feels like it has 800 horsepower, it doesn't feel like it's going to try and snap your neck off. I can't really explain fully the difference between it and something like a Porsche 911 Turbo S, which feels, or a Taycan, which feels like it's going to absolutely snap your back. The power delivery of it, the 812 GTS, which is naturally aspirated, just feels creamier, it feels smoother, it feels like something that's building with you, it feels enjoyable. And then there's that soundtrack. You've got this V12 sound just coming into the cabin from that open window behind you. It cannot fail to put a smile on your face. Every upshift is soundtracked with a crack from the exhaust at the back. It feels like fire and thunder are coming together to create this most wonderful mix, like the whole of the London Symphony Orchestra has been brought along with you in the back of the car just to entertain you. You just want to keep accelerating and then never stop. And then when you come down the gears, you've got the same experience in reverse. Each downshift and on the overrunner, you just hear it sounding magnificent. And then you think this might be one of the last engines of its kind. How many more Ferraris are going to be naturally aspirated? How many more Ferraris are not going to be hybridized or electrified? This might be one of the final chances we get to experience something like this. And, well, all I can do is wax lyrical about being able to have such an experience and just hope I get to do it again.